Wow, guys, this one's really rotten. This is going to be an episode of Rotten Reviews all about Hellboy 2019. Hellboy, yes, the one from 2019, not the good ones, not the ones with Ron Perlman. Both of those were great. This one, it's really rotten. It has a 17% on the tomato meter, a 51% on the audience score. Wow, I didn't see this in the theater, and I'm glad. I heard it was bad. I didn't see this on DVD or Blu-ray. I'm also very pleased that I managed to avoid that. I just saw this on HBO on its premiere night on HBO, which was last night. And now I can see why people panned this as being bad, as being rotten. I agree, it's very rotten, and that 51% audience score, it doesn't deserve that. It should be more like 40% on the audience score. This was disappointing in every way, and in fact, I could tell it was bad in the first 5 minutes. It had kind of off-putting and bad CGI. It looked like the CGI was rushed. Some CGI in this film did look good later on, but the CGI at the beginning was really bad. It made a bad impression on me right off the bat. And this film, it started off right away dropping F-bombs in medieval times and etc. Wow, it just didn't work on any level. I took a lot of notes on why it's so bad, but those F-bombs right off the bat in ancient times, yeah, it's just wrong. And this has David Harbour, Mila Jovovich, and Ian McShane. I can say that David Harbour could have worked as Hellboy, but the script is just so bad and his dialogue is so bad and ridiculous that it didn't work. But it wasn't because of the actor. I mean, he could have made it work. Mia Jovovich, miscast, and especially at the beginning of it, she wasn't believable. The acting was subpar, to say the least, and the CGI involving her in particular was very subpar and off-putting, and I could just tell it was rushed, that they ran out of time to fix the flaws with it. Ian McShane, he just plays Ian McShane. You've seen him play this same character in many, many other movies, but it works in other movies. It doesn't work here. He plays Hellboy's dad. This is more like a reboot or a remake of the original Hellboy. At first, you could kind of go along with it and think that it could follow along with the original Hellboy, but it doesn't. It outright becomes a reboot, and Ian McShane is the father figure to Hellboy, and it doesn't work at all. It doesn't feel like they belong together. Their dialogue doesn't work together. It just feels like a spoiled brat called Hellboy is arguing with his dad a whole lot, and his dad is just antagonistic towards him for no particular reason. They don't seem like father and son relationship material. It did work with Ron Perlman's version of Hellboy. Doesn't work in this version. It's very bad. But let's get right into the audience reviews. And I gave this film an open mind. I went into it knowing people had said it was not good, but I completely gave it an open mind, and it just failed. I mean, I couldn't even get 10 minutes in, and I'm just shaking my head at this thing. 1 star, 4 days ago. A total shit show. Hellboy goes off the rails without the guiding hand and vision of Guillermo del Toro, and this completely unnecessary reboot. Hellboy works to prevent a powerful witch from resurrecting and unleashing an apocalyptic plague upon mankind. Ron Perlman casts a long shadow, and David Harbour pales in comparison as the new Hellboy, and Mia Jovovich is extremely cartoonish and isn't the least bit threatening as the villain. Yet the script is so bad, it'd be hard for anyone to make it. Yeah, I'll continue that. It'd be hard for anyone to make it through this thing. I made it through because it was so weird I had to keep watching. There was a point in this movie that I didn't know what the hell was happening. They threw so many things in here that were probably in the Hellboy comic series, but if you're not a comic book fan, you wouldn't know what the hell to make of it. It became like a Hellboy movie, and then it became a movie about Baba Yaga, and then it became a movie about King Arthur, and this was all thrown together, and it went from one to the other so quickly that I had trouble figuring out what the hell was going on. At one point, Hellboy became it became a sword in the stone King Arthur film, and he pulled Excalibur from a rock. In an earlier part, he had the opportunity to get Excalibur from an underground lake. What the hell was going on? I didn't know at times. Let's go into another review here from 5 days ago, half a star. Bad from start to finish. No one understands why it was made. No one asked for a sequel, let alone a reboot. Probably the worst modern movie I've ever seen. Yeah, and you end up with Hellboy. You get a little backstory on this witch character played by Mia Jovovich, and then you go into Hellboy visiting a girl in an apartment in London or in the London area, and you're wondering who the hell she is. And I didn't quite understand who she was. She's not a character from the first Hellboy or the second Hellboy. She's just a character I'm expected to know who the hell she is and what power she has. And a lot of the movie was like that. They threw characters in there that I'm supposed to know who they are, as though I had just read all the Hellboy comics, and I've never even seen a Hellboy comic, so I had no clue what the hell was going on or why I should care. And there were attempts at one-liners between Hellboy and these characters, and I'm supposed to care, but I don't, because I don't know why the hell Hellboy even knows them. Yeah, let's just continue. 1.5 stars, 6 days ago, not English. Half a star, December 9th. Horrible, written with cheap effects, and this seems more like a film student low-budget movie. No, I'll disagree on that. The effects were obviously expensive and very time-consuming to produce, yet they didn't look real. They looked more like a cartoon. And in fact, there's a sequence that's like a Hellboy vision or a dream sequence of Hellboy's, where he's brought hell to earth, and he's got his full horns, and he's riding a dragon, and he's laying waste to the modern world as a demonic Hellboy. And it looks like a cartoon. It straight up looks like an animated cartoon in every regard, and it just pulls you right out of this film. And there's another character played by Daniel Kim, or let me go back and take a look at his actual, the actor's name, Daniel Day Kim. Yeah, he plays a character that can transform into a jaguar, and his jaguar form looks like a cartoon fighting alongside Hellboy. And I'm not sure why he's even there, and why. I guess he's from the Hellboy comics, but I have no idea what's going on with him, and he needs to take this serum to prevent himself from just turning into this jaguar character, like a Jekyll and Hyde thing, where he gets mad and he turns into this jaguar character, unless he takes this serum that he periodically injects into himself. And when he does turn into the jaguar, it looks like a cartoon. I don't know what the hell's going on here. 1 star, December 2nd, 2019. A movie doesn't have to be fun to be good, and doesn't have to be good to be fun, but when it's neither good nor fun, what's the point in watching? This soulless Hellboy reboot is on top of the worst movies ever made. It's got no reasonable plot line, horrid makeup and visual effects, disgusting and unnecessary gore, and a script written by baboons. I can't believe this crap was greenlit instead of any new or original idea that could potentially be the next big thing. It's a shame what cinema has come to. Yeah, this reviewer's he's pretty much right on the money. The effects are bad. They're cartoonish. They're expensive, but overdone and cartoonish. The plot is kind of really convoluted, and you have a hard time following what's going on. And they're taking things out of the comic and throwing it in here as though you're supposed to know what it means. There's backstory about how Hellboy has this history with Baba Yaga, and you don't understand why, because it's like they expected you to read the comic to understand the relevance of it. There's unnecessary gore. Yeah, it becomes a gore fest towards the final act. It's so gory, it's hard to watch. It turns into a straight-up horror gore fest. Doesn't fit with the rest of the film at all. It's not funny. It's straight-up hard to watch it. It's so gory and disgusting. I don't know how this was made. It gives you that feeling when you watch it at the end. Yeah, I agree completely with that review. Half a star, December 2nd, 2019. The CGI was too cheap. Again, it wasn't cheap. It was clearly expensive, but it was like done really badly or rushed, or I don't know how many people worked on it or if they were even speaking to each other when they were working on it, but it looks like a cartoon. You would have had a more believable, engaging story, just flat out making this an animated adventure of some kind. Just make it anime. Yeah, let's go into my notes. There's a lot of dialogue with Hellboy arguing with his dad, with Ian McShane's character, and it serves no purpose, and there's nothing witty about it, and it just makes Hellboy look like a spoiled brat, and it serves no purpose except to pad the running time. A lot of just him bickering and arguing with his dad for no reason. It's not shown why. Like, it shows like a Hellboy origin story scene, like the first Hellboy does, where he's like part of a Nazi experiment, and Ian McShane's character comes along, and he's supposed to kill Hellboy, but instead he decides to take him in and make him the centerpiece of this paranormal organization. And it doesn't work at all. The CGI on the baby Hellboy looks really stupid and clownish, and the first movie did it far better. And the second movie, or this movie, this remake, the whole scene where the Nazis are trying to summon something from hell looks like laughably bad and goofy and corny and cheesy. And there's this cheesy character that shows up called the Claw, or the Lobster Claw, and it's completely stupid, and it looks like it belongs in a parody movie, but it's put into this movie in a serious fashion. It is very bizarre, and it also, that Lobster Claw character features in a post-credit scene as a ghost. It's very weird. I don't know what to make of it. It's very cringy, cheesy. There is, this problem that Hellboy's dad has with him. Doesn't explain why there's this problem. It's just there's got to be a problem between both of them. And Hellboy's origin story is kind of it's pointless because it doesn't figure into the plot at any other point. And the first movie actually made the origin story of Hellboy make sense with other things that happened in the plot later. This film doesn't. It's completely disconnected from the rest of the film. It's like completely pointless. They should have just cut the origin out completely, because they just completely crapped all over themselves by trying to do a really bad rendition of what the first film did. They should have actually just made this a continuation of Hellboy, not try to just remake this, because they failed completely. Um, yeah, there's a lot of dialogue that's just designed to have the characters explain things to the audience, and it's too obvious, and it serves no other purpose. Characters are asking themselves things that they should already know, just for the purpose of informing the audience of some facts, and it's really obvious. Like, there's a way to do that, and this film just failed doing that completely. 1 star, November 23rd, 2019. I'm not sure what's going on with this film other than its urge to pull the audience into some sort of experience of hell with a disgusting aftertaste. Half a star, November 21st. If I could put less stars on this heresy, then I would. This travesty is what we got instead of Hellboy 3. If you like this movie, then good on you, but it made me very hurt when I struggled through it. Yeah, it's like I couldn't tell what was going on sometimes. 1.5 star, November 13th. If Guillermo del Toro's version of Hellboy is the imaginative grand symphony, then this version is the discordant heavy metal little brother. Based on the Wild Hunt and the Storm and the Fury storylines in the comics doesn't save it either. Lacking the del Toro's vision, the character and monster designs are pedantic at best. David Harbour plays the titular infernal hero, and while at first the costume design seems grittier than Ron Perlman's Hellboy, it becomes clear very quickly that they're getting a little long-winded here, but let's just say it sucked. I didn't think there was anything wrong with Hellboy's actual costume appearance. I thought it was fine. I didn't think that David Harbour's performance as Hellboy was bad, but the script was so horrible, and what they did with Hellboy was so ridiculous. At one point, Hellboy is fighting these giants, and that looks passable with the CGI, but all the camera shots and what they did was just a wasted opportunity, and it was very lackluster and very boring watching Hellboy fight these giants, and watching Hellboy get speared and struggle to fight against these British knights that ambushed him. Very boring and lackluster again, and I don't understand the point of it. It actually bored me. The CGI was fine in that regard, but it was just boring. It had all this action, but it was done in a very boring and bland way. Completely failed. Whoever directed this was I'm sorry, they were just a shit director. It didn't matter what fantastic CGI you put on the giants and all this other stuff. It was just boring, and it was because of the way he directed it, definitely. 1 star, November 13, 2019. Not a patch on the original Hellboy with Ron Perlman, true. Half a star, November 10th. What? The plot? I'm not even sure what I watched the right movie. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't sure what the hell I was watching too at points of it. November 10th, 3 stars. Not a bad Hellboy movie, but nowhere near as good as the previous one. That's an understatement. 1.5 stars, November 9th. Where the brutal violence hits, the script misses. There's a lack of chemistry between the key characters, with often shoddy VFX work. It had a high bar to jump after Del Toro. Personally, I'd stick with the original. Yeah, you know what's funny? The original is like 2003, 2004, I believe. It looked a lot better than this. Really, it did. And you can see that, we're talking about a 15-year gap in time. You would think the CGI and stuff would improve, the visual effects. No, it got worse. It became more off-putting. It certainly was more expensive. It certainly was more time-consuming. But it completely took the film backwards. It made it worse of a film than the first one. The first one and even the second one are far superior to this movie. Let's check my notes right here. Hellboy had a lot of dumb one-liners. They were trying to do Marvel-type dumb one-liners, and it completely failed. They weren't funny at all. They were boring. You saw them coming from far away. At one point, Hellboy actually makes a one-liner and then makes fun of how bad his one-liners are, like breaking the fourth wall, in effect, because at some point the director realized how bad the one-liners really were, or the script writer was making fun of his own writing. That's how bad this stuff was. Cringe-worthy bad. Excalibur shows up at more than one point. It becomes an Excalibur-type movie. Hellboy's told to go off to this cavern, which is said to be some impossible-to-reach, arduous journey to get to this underground cavern, that something's going to be there that will aid him on his journey to fighting the big bad witch. And then, in the span of 20 seconds, it cuts to him getting to the cavern. No arduous journey, nothing. You're just in the cavern all of a sudden. Hellboy reaches down, digs up a coffin, pulls this old guy out of a coffin. The old guy, you don't know who he is. Hellboy's having a conversation with him. The old guy points to a pool of water in the cavern, and Excalibur comes up, kind of like how Excalibur came out of the lake with that hand holding it in, that old 1980-81 film of Excalibur. And so, yes, this is Excalibur movie now, and Hellboy refuses to take Excalibur, and then at that point, I actually had enough clues to realize that that character that Hellboy had dragged out of the coffin was in fact King Arthur, that was somehow still alive in his coffin, just an old ratty-looking man waiting to be pulled out of his coffin by Hellboy. What? What the hell did I just watch? And Hellboy literally got to that underground cavern that was supposed to be some hard-to-find, arduous journey to get to on some remote island. He got there in less than 30 seconds. Wow. What did I just watch? And he refuses to take Excalibur from the lake, which is a pond, this underground cavern, this pond in the cavern. And then later in the movie, we crash through the floor of some kind of cathedral, and Excalibur is there in a stone. And it had been in this stone in this cathedral in London, just under the floor, for centuries apparently, just stuck in the stone, waiting for Hellboy to pull it out of the stone. What? This even breaks continuity within the movie itself. First, Excalibur is in this lake that you have to reach in this underground lair cavern in an island somewhere. And then also later, Excalibur is in a stone to be pulled out of the stone by Hellboy in a cathedral in London, just under the floor. Wow, that's when I'm really going, what is going on here? And that's when I'm just watching the movie, finishing out the movie to find out how bad this is going to get, and it actually gets worse. Let's read more rotten reviews. Um, yeah, half a star. Wow, what a colossal waste of time. This was absolutely one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Thankfully, I only wasted a loonie renting it. I was done watching it after minutes, if that. Well, they're saying they spent, I guess, $1 to rent this, so it's not that bad. Okay, they got lucky. Can you imagine seeing this in the theater and being sitting there, and you're sitting there in your seat with a bucket of popcorn, and you just like realize what the hell's going on and why am I here, and can I get my like $16 back? Because wow. 2 stars, November 7th, 2019. I remember seeing the original 2 Hellboy movies and thinking to myself, I like the character more than I enjoy the movies. I rated the first Hellboy 7.9 and the second one, 79, and the second one an 83. I'm presuming they're using the Metacritic type 100 max score. So I did not hate them by any means, and I thought the direction of Guillermo del Toro was great. So when we found out that we were trying to do a new Hellboy, I was kind of excited because in this new superhero world, I thought someone might have a cool take on Hellboy. This movie was really just not good in a lot of ways. Wow, that's kind of understating it. This movie was certainly more expensive to make than the other Hellboy movies, just the CGI alone, I would imagine. And it's a hell of a lot worse than both of those two movies. 2 stars, November 6th. A reboot was not needed. A third film from Guillermo del Toro would have been better, plain and simple. Yeah, I don't know the backstory why we couldn't just get a third Hellboy movie, but that's what should have happened. Even with a different director, even with this director, they should have just gone for a third Hellboy movie because they really fucked this up trying to do a reboot. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, cartoon CGI. Oh, then we've got news reports. Now, keep in mind the apocalypse happens. Um, at one point, Hellboy pulls Excalibur out of the stone. He transforms into his full Hellboy character, the one that you've seen in the trailers, stepping out of the hole in the floor with the full horns, with fire, crown of fire between the horns, and a flaming sword. It all looks very cartoonish and bad. It looks worse than it looked in the trailer. And then the apocalypse comes, and all these giant CGI monsters start killing people in gory ways throughout the streets of London. And then, yeah, within the span of like 2 or 3 minutes of that occurring, all the news reports come on the TV, and the news is saying that the apocalypse has started all over the world, and it fills in all this exposition. These newscasters tell you that the apocalypse has begun, and they pinpoint all the cities all over the earth on the map where the apocalypse has begun. But it began like 2 or 3 minutes before that. So how is there already a newscast on telling you about the apocalypse and calling it the apocalypse? It's completely ridiculous, and it's something an 8-year-old would think is cool in an 8-year-old's cartoon. It's like it goes right along with the ridiculous CGI that looks like a cartoon, and I'm just shaking my head watching this whole thing. And then you've got all this crazy over-the-top gore. People are getting ripped apart, torn apart literally, and splattered all over the streets of London by giant CGI monsters. And it's a total gore fest. You can barely look at it. Wow, 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 it's bad. Yeah, very cartoonish in other ways. And yeah, there's a post-credit scene where a like old superhero character that's seen in Hellboy's origin scene, he shows up as a ghost in a graveyard. Why Hellboy's in a graveyard, I don't know. In this post-credit scene, Hellboy's in some kind of graveyard with tombs, and this ghost character walks through him, and then Hellboy says, "Oh my God, what just happened?" And then that's it. And it's set up to, I guess, be Marvel-esque in that there's going to be another Hellboy movie in the franchise. And all I can say is, please no. Please, nobody make another movie like this. Don't make this into a franchise. If there's another one after this, please just make it a straight up parody, because that's the only way people are going to pay to see it. Make it a straight up parody that you can laugh at. And that's the unfortunate part of this movie. It's not one of those so bad it's so good movies. You can't laugh at this at any point. Even if you're drinking, you're not going to get a laugh out of this. It's just completely stupid. It's cringeworthy stupid. Unfortunately, I wished I could laugh at it, but I didn't get a single laugh out of this thing. Not at the one-liners, not at just laughing at the stupidity of it. It was just too stupid and boring. Half a star. This has to be the worst movie in every area of production ever. It's like they hired the worst third assistants in Rhodesia's film industry and gave them control over their whole department. Worst dialogues ever, terrible acting, disjointed plot. Next time, donate the money. Yeah, anybody that paid money to see this in the theaters probably wishing that they just bought a 12-pack of beer instead. Wow. 1 star, October 29th. A complete witless bloody mess. 3 stars. Too much fighting, too little storytelling. I liked the Blood Queen, Mia, but I thought, you have a fairy tale to tell, so give us that big funny fairy tale. It became a small fairy tale, which I liked, but it was not quite enough. I would have liked a little more. You're being too kind to this. The movie kind of tries to take a bunch of different fairy tale stuff and cram it together, along with Excalibur and King Arthur, and wow, a guy that turns into a jaguar. 1 star, October 27th. Harbor is a good Perlman stand-in. Otherwise, feels like a messier entry in the Resident Evil franchise. The Liverpudlian pig monster was also annoying as hell. Yeah, there's like a character that's mad at Hellboy because presumably Hellboy like ruined his childhood because he was supposed to grow up and be a I don't know. He was supposed to be swapped out in a changeling fairy type. You know how fairies swap babies with changelings? He was supposed to be the changeling that would become a normal human, and he would grow up as a normal human and be a regular guy and have this nice life. But he's mad at Hellboy because there's a flashback where Hellboy kind of thwarts the plan of the fairies, and the fairies are forced to return the real baby to the parents. And this pigman character, he ends up being like an outcast and has to continue being this pigman character. And he grows up hating Hellboy so much that he works with the evil queen to kind of help the evil queen take over the world just to see Hellboy destroyed. And at one point, the evil queen, played by Mia Jovovich, she transforms the evil pig guy, who's like a runt, into this gigantic towering pig monster guy that's as big as a building, and he gets his ass kicked by Hellboy, of course, in the end. But just watching it was really stupid, and this pig boy character, he was always dropping F-bombs and talking like some gutter snipe off the streets of London with F-bombs left and right, and it didn't work. It wasn't funny. It was just cringeworthy stupid to see this. And there were other stupid things that were cringeworthy, like there was a scene in which Hellboy was summoned to the hut of Baba Yaga, and he went into an elevator, and the elevator refused to go up even though he kept slamming his fist on the up button. The elevator kept going down faster and faster until it slammed to a halt at the bottom. And there's a big, long, drawn-out scene in the elevator where Hellboy's just going down, 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 and slamming his fist on the buttons, but the elevator, or he's going up, 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 and slamming his fist on the buttons, and the elevator keeps saying in an elevator voice, down, down, down. And why it goes on for 30 seconds like that, I don't know. It's supposed to be funny or something, but it's completely stupid and boring, and I'm just sitting there watching this going, who thinks this is funny? What was the director thinking? What was the script writer thinking? Wow. It was just kind of pointless and stupid. So let's move on. Half a star, October 26, 2019, garbage. Where do they get off calling this movie Hellboy? Yeah. And you know when the movie ends, it doesn't really just end with the bad guy being defeated. It kind of carries on after that. Before the credits, it kind of carries on with Hellboy and these two side characters. They're on a mission at some point in the future, and They defeat all these bad guys for whatever reason we don't know or care in some facility that we don't know or care where it is, and they discover that character, that liquid breathing character that's in the tube that we see right away in the first Hellboy movie that's featured prominently in the plot. I don't know the name of his character, but they discover him in this tube. And again, it shows us that they're continuing. They want to make a second Hellboy movie. And this takes place before the credits actually roll. And it's kind of like a scene where we're just hoping that they don't make another Hellboy, but they're showing us that, yes, we plan on making another Hellboy movie. Wow. Wow, bad. Let's read on. 3 stars, October 25th, 2019. Not a total waste of your time to rent at home. Still, while David Harbour brings similar flair to the role, you do miss Ron Perlman and Del Toro magic. You know, just having Ron Perlman not here, that's not the big flaw here. I went into this with an open mind. I had no problem with the way David Harbour looked. I had no problem with his voice or his acting, but the script was so bad. It just made him look bad. Script writing, complete garbage. 3 stars, or rather 2.5 stars, October 24th. Review, Hellboy superhero film directed by Neil Marshall. It is based on the Dark Horse Comics character of the same name. This film was on my most anticipated list of 2019. I am a big fan of the 2 movies by Guillermo del Toro and was really excited about this one. Unfortunately, this movie is a huge mess with only one thing to love, David Harbour. The acting is not great at all. Mia Jovovich doesn't even seem like she knows she is in a movie, and all the side characters are so boring. Yeah, Mia Jovovich, miscast and just totally worthless. Like, she's not convincing as any kind of witch queen. She's just there to collect the paycheck. Boring, bland, stupid, and the bad CGI along with her just makes her look even worse. So yeah, I agree with that. 1 star, October 17th. How you can make a bad Hellboy movie, I'll never know, but here it is. Yeah, exactly. Let's just call this one. Why put ourselves through it? We have Hellboy. 17% on the tomato meter, 51% on the audience score. You know, I'll notice it only has 4,149 user reviews. I wonder why. It's like people just didn't bother. Maybe they're so off-put by the trailer that they didn't even bother to see it on rental. Didn't even bother. Maybe they're going to start seeing it on HBO now, certainly, and you'll start seeing more reviews come in as people pan this as total garbage. So I would expect that 51% audience score to actually drop. I'm anticipating that will go down to like a 30% audience score within the next couple of years. Wouldn't shock me in the least. That's where it really deserves to be, in my opinion. So before I get too depressed over this, I will bid you farewell and see you on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.